Well, everybody has a story. And man, do you have stories?
Most of them I can't tell.
I was just thinking exactly the same thing. Nobody gets the story they want. Nobody gets to hear Chuck's stories that they want. But your story matters immensely to God. This is my friend Chuck Bergstrom. And gosh, we had our souls knit together when we were 15 years old.
We did.
And if you look really carefully in my office, when I film here, you will sometimes see this picture right there. And now here he is.
That's right.
In
Live
real
and in
life.
person.
Yep. And we were talking about, you were saying if you were to write a book, it would be...
Yes, it would be called The Craziest Gift of All.
It involves kind of a journey that I was a part of, although in the deepest ways, in many ways, not really. And it involves your dad. Just say a little bit about your dad.
Yeah, so my dad was a World War II vet. He had been a florist before the war, got drafted, was actually at Fort Lewis when Pearl Harbor was bombed out in Washington State, and said that they evacuated the entire base and bivouacked in the woods for days, not knowing the Japanese fleet was off the coast of the west coast of America. But later landed in Morocco, went across North Africa, was in the Battle of Sicily, and then landed on Anzio. And they talk about the greatest generation, and when you think that this war was won by people like my father, who was first a florist and later a high school custodian, and just absolutely a gentle man.
Yeah.
He was just a kind and gentle man. And you think, how did we win the war fighting with people like that? This guy he was not meant to be a soldier. It was like, this is ridiculous.
No.
It's ridiculous.
And part of why I thought we might try to tell this story is we don't get the story we want. And very often, and you see this often in the Bible, like with Joseph when he's in slavery in prison, those parts of our stories that we most wish didn't happen or that we most think are painful end up being some of the most meaningful.
Yeah.
And Chuck's mom was this very, very strong, intense character. Your dad, I didn't know well. We didn't talk about him as much. And he had to fight a battle that was pretty much unseen. So talk about that, because back then, emotional health issues were not discussed much.
Right. So I'm ashamed and embarrassed to say that when I was growing up, I was actually ashamed and embarrassed of my dad. And it's kind of emotional, but he was bipolar. And when I was growing up, that term wasn't used. We didn't know. To me, he was just crazy. And it was really interesting because I grew up in a strong Christian family, and my dad was a person of faith. And periodically he would just melt down, either really depressed, which was manageable because he was tame, or at times really manic and do things that were just like, oh my goodness. I was telling John, one of the strangest things he did was he decided he was going to plant a garden in the backyard and decided it'd be good to fertilize it so we had nice vegetables. And his sister had a farm about 15 miles out of town, and he drove to the farm and filled the trunk of the family car with manure to bring home and fertilize the garden, and just go, what is wrong with him? Yeah, it's like, this is absolutely this is insane. It's crazy. And when he got really manic, that's when he would end up in the VA hospital for 2 or 3 months at a time. He actually came home from Anzio with what was then called shell shock, and in retrospect would have been, manic episode. But growing up, my dad was different from everybody else's dad. Just every 3 or 4 years into the VA hospital in Chicago, and really kind of crazy as a two-headed cat. And as a Christian, and again, strong...
That's not a medical diagnosis.
Yeah,
I've never heard that one before.
It is not a medical diagnosis.
Chuck is a medical doctor.
Yeah. And growing up as a Christian, I thought, well, if my dad had more faith, this would not be happening. It's just like, it's a lack of faith on my dad's part. And it's like, I didn't understand what the problem was. And it was interesting because when I was a junior in college, I guess, he was in the VA hospital again. And again, just shame and embarrassment on my part. And it was then that he got put on lithium. They just started using lithium. And when he came out of the hospital at that point in time, he was absolutely normal for 12 years until he died.
Wow.
And I had said that I had never questioned his need for insulin. He was diabetic. And it was like, well, of course he needs insulin. He's diabetic. But I'd always thought that his emotional problems were a lack of faith. And
if he would have just prayed, toughened up, believed the right stuff.
Be tougher, pray.
Just be normal.
Be normal. It's like, come on, what's wrong with your faith? And yet, like I say, he needed his insulin. And boy, did he need the lithium. And once he got on it, was like, oh my goodness, this is a medical illness. And just a profound insight to me. In fact, I have a letter that's still on my desk at home. And it was the last time he went into the hospital. And in it, he wrote, I don't know why this is happening to me, but I know that God is in charge. And
Wow.
it's like, and if I questioned his faith, and it was never an issue of faith. It was a medical illness, and just staggering to me.
Yeah. And the reality is,
Yeah.
your dad was fighting a battle, and he fought it with a kind of courage. Like, he could have ended his life. He didn't do
Sure.
that.
Yeah.
He could have been
Yeah.
so ashamed that he could have left
Yeah.
the home. He did not do that. He stayed
Yep.
with you. He was fighting a battle that nobody but him and God would ever know about.
Right.
That took so much courage.
Yep. Yeah.
And it makes me sad to think about, in those days, you would have to go through that. And we were such close friends, but that wasn't something that we talked about. And
No, it wasn't. I was
Wasn't.
embarrassed and ashamed.
something that
Yeah.
I would have,
Yeah.
I didn't think to ask or want to know about more deeply.
Right. So,
And then this was really striking. I had never known this until this week. We were hiking a couple days ago, and you were talking about in your medical practice, when was it a best day? Like, what was your best day? And you said something really striking.
yeah, I said the best day in my medical practice was when it would be the last patient of the day, and they might come in with a separate complaint, but when they would reveal that they were really depressed and struggling, and I had half an hour or an hour to just sit and talk and to say, this can be a medical illness and it's treatable. And here's my personal experience with my dad. Just, if you're feeling shame and embarrassment about this, let me tell you the story of my dad. And just to offer that person hope and to say, I really think we can help you get better, and I would like you to see a counselor as well. But to have someone come in and feel like they were abnormal and to be ashamed of what was happening in their life, and to say, you're actually very normal, and this is treatable, and we will help you, and I want you to have hope. And so borrow my faith and borrow my hope, and I want you to just, if you trust me as a friend and a physician, then I'd like you to borrow that from me and say, well, he said I'll get better. And I would just want you to hang on to that. When you believe you won't get better, I want you to remember that I said you will, and we're going to work with you diligently to get you better. So, yeah, my dad's gift of being crazy was that he helped me understand what was actually a very prominent part of any primary care physician's practice. We treat blood pressure, diabetes, and then frequently depression. And it was actually such a gift to me to be able to extend hope to patients. And I had so many patients who would say, you were able to offer hope when I didn't think I had any. And that was a gift my dad gave me. Just part of his story that who knew?
No, and I think outside of your medical practice, Chuck lives in Atlanta where they have Waffle Houses.
That's right.
And I often think maybe the main point of your being on earth is you just sit and have coffee with people at Waffle House, and there's something about you, just your bizarre sense of humor and smart assness and humility. And it's like there's a wound, and because you have had to carry that wound inside, other people feel safe with you and talk with you over a cup of coffee at the Waffle House in a way that they wouldn't do. And I think about there's that line where Paul's writing to the church at Corinth, 2 Corinthians. He says, praise the God and Father of all comfort, who comforts us in our troubles so that we're able to comfort other people with the comfort that we have received. And that's part of what you have been doing for all these years, and part of something that seemed like it was such a weakness and something to be embarrassed about with your dad, but has ended up enabling you to be with and love and care for other people in ways that you could not if your dad didn't endure what he did.
No, I was telling John earlier, I think of the verse in Corinthians about there remains faith, hope, and love, and I think of my dad's faith, even in the midst of his manic episodes and going into a VA hospital where he said, I know that God is still in charge. I think of my mom's love when she had friends and family members saying, why do you stay with him? And it's like, because he's my husband. And then just the hope that I've been able to offer other people by describing that story, and other people saying, I need hope. And it's like, I want you to know that there is hope. So it's like, gosh, there remains faith, hope, and love. And aren't those wonderful things? And it's like, that's what I get by on day to day. Sometimes like, okay, there's faith, there's hope, there's love. It's okay. We'll make it. We'll make it. So craziest gift of all.
And we are the fellowship of the withered hand. For some reason, I don't understand, that story of Jesus asking the man to stand up and exposed what was his greatest shame and weakness and fear. And somehow when he did that, and there was the thing that he couldn't do, God was present and power was present and healing is present. And it's that way for us. It's that way when we're together. And it's been that way for you and me.
For over 50 years.
Didn't even know in the beginning why or how all of those things were going on.
Yeah.
But I'm so grateful that your dad bore what he had to bear in the way that he did. And it's part of what made you you. You are part of what has made my life possible. And so thank you for...
Absolutely. Thanks for letting me share the story. Now I don't have to write the book. It's going to save me a lot of time. So appreciate it.
All right. Love you. Make your story great.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, I was actually saying I love you to those guys out there, but I love you too.
Thought it was from... Never mind. He's a lover. He is just a lover.
Hey, if you enjoyed that video, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss any future teachings from John Ortberg here at Become New. My name's Tim, and I'm a part of the team here. This series is all about stories. Everybody has a story, and everybody's story matters. And we want to know about your story, whether it's a story of coming to faith or a story of spiritual growth. Whatever it is, we're here for you. You can email that to us at connect@becomenew.com, or you can text it to us. You can also sign up for daily reminders whenever we drop a new video via text by texting the word BECOME to the number 855-888-0444. You can also send us prayer requests there. There's a team of us that meet to pray each weekday for viewers just like yourself. If you'd like to receive the emails that go along with each video, be sure to check that out at becomenew.com/subscribe. More than a video to watch, this is really a community to belong to, and we're so glad that you're a part of it. We'll catch you next time.